All right, cool. Check one. You just tap on your micro quick for me? Yep.
Syphilis.
All right, so I'm here with TYR SYMANK, right?
Pretty close, yeah. That's as close as anybody's ever gotten on my first try. Yeah. SYMANK, the N is SYMANK.
Okay. So we met last year at TAC in Seven Springs and did like a little short podcast.
Yep.
But you probably meet so many people in your travels you barely remember. But you're a super interesting guy. So I wanted to get you back on the podcast for a long time. We had one set up actually for this week on Zoom, but my plans changed and I decided to come down here for TAC. So
that's right. In person's always better.
Yeah. So yeah, man. So were you shooting today or just setting up?
No, just setting up. So nothing's open up there yet today. Just the vendors are getting set up, and Sean's up there herding cats and trying not to have a heart attack and whatnot.
Are you gonna? Do you shoot them when you go?
Oh,
usually,
yeah. So we're gonna shoot at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning with a couple friends, and then we'll probably do a second shorter course in the afternoon.
Okay. So I'm actually signed up for the Black Rifle course because I'm not set up for like those 100-yard ridiculous shots.
I haven't even shot our course. I don't know what it's. In fact, so last year Nicole and I were at every TAC except South Dakota and Michigan last year. We didn't do Michigan. I did Michigan the year before. So we did every single TAC there was last year because we had.
How many is that?
I don't know. It was enough to take up the whole summer.
A blur.
Yeah, it was. We didn't see our house for 2.5 months.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Do you like traveling that much, or is it
not that much?
Yeah, that's
no,
a little much.
It was a little much. Yeah. I'm fortunate that she was with me.
Yeah. Can we have you slide that just a touch over here so your chin doesn't
to my right?
on it? Either way, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Hello, Michael Clancy.
You guys doing the podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another one of our soft guys that works here.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. But where was? Oh yeah. I don't like traveling.
That's a lot.
It's a balance because there's some FOMO there.
Yeah.
Because these are fun. They're fun events.
Right.
But as much as I traveled in the military and contracting as well, man, I miss my living room. I miss
just chilling.
I miss cutting my grass. All the domestic stuff you kind of take for granted.
Yeah, and you have kids, but they're older, right?
Yeah, so I've got 2 adult kids and then one that's in high school.
Okay, nice. Where are they at?
My son's in Portland. My oldest daughter is in Spokane.
You're not granddad yet, are you?
Not yet. I've had a couple of granddad scares. Yeah, my kids, 2 of my kids are older than I was when I had them. I was pretty young.
Yeah, okay.
So, and then my youngest is in Seattle.
Okay, cool, man.
Yeah.
So, I want to hear just a little bit about you. I mean, I don't want to go. I'd like to hit some areas maybe that are not on like other podcasts,
Sure.
just to hit it a little different. But I'd like to hear just a little bit about growing up in Oregon, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was your childhood like in Oregon? I feel like so many like badass people come out of Oregon. What is with Oregon?
Well, I think for most of those badasses, it's because they come out of a wilderness upbringing and hunting and fishing and all that. And I had a smidge of that.
Yeah.
But mine was more of a roundabout kind of eclectic way.
Did you grow up like hunting and fishing and stuff, or not really?
A little bit.
A little bit.
So my
you were a ski bum.
Yeah, I was a ski bum. My grandfather was a pretty good outdoorsman. Lots of hunting and whatnot. And my dad was to a lesser extent, but and then on my mom's side. My mom tied her own flies. My mom and my dad split up before I could even remember.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I was about 2.
Yeah.
And I hope that squeaking isn't too much for you.
It'll be okay.
It'll be all right.
It's like we did this live in a coffee shop.
Yeah, we did.
It's spitting.
Just go spit on the hinges real quick. So my mom and my stepdad were big into fishing.
Yeah.
And my grandparents also were into salmon fishing. So they had a boat and we'd go out.
And your granddad was World War II vet?
World War II vet.
What did he do? Or like what
He was an airborne truck driver.
Airborne truck driver.
Yeah.
okay.
So his job, what they trained him up to do, when he got shipped to the Pacific, they were basically going to be do airborne resupplies.
Okay.
So he went to Fort Lee, Virginia for all his training. But it was a big part of a campaign that never happened because while he was on the boat over to Japan, they surrendered.
Oh no.
Yeah, he likes to joke. They heard I was coming.
That's funny.
Yeah, but he was 17 at the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one of my grandfathers was a ball turret gunner on a B-24.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then the other one was a helmsman on the Essex.
Okay. What's the Essex?
It was like aircraft carrier.
Okay.
Yeah. They got survived a kamikaze hit. And,
Right.
Great. He's actually my great uncle, but I consider him like a granddad. But anyway, man. So.
So my grandfather he's the youngest of 7 brothers and sisters.
Okay.
And he's from Texas, little town in the middle of nowhere, Texas.
Okay.
And his next older brother was also in the military. Actually, all his brothers were.
Yeah.
All his brothers served in World War II, which is why he wanted to sign up, honestly. And also, he thought he was just going to go anyway. So he had his dad sign off for him so he could join when he was 17. But his next older brother was the cook in the Navy, which doesn't sound like much unless you're, Steven Seagal,
Yeah.
secret Navy SEAL cook in the Navy. Yeah. But he had 2 boats shot out from under him. I don't know which ones, but he had 2 boats shot out from under him.
Wow.
And one of them, all he was able to save was a 5-gallon jug of ice cream. So they were on a life raft with this 5-gallon jug of ice cream. That's what they.
At least it's calorie dense, right?
Right. Yeah.
Well, let me check one thing really quick.
You gonna check the levels?
No, just making sure I hit record.
Make sure you record. I did that to Nicole the other day. I was recording, and we got halfway through, and I'd look down, and I noticed the red light wasn't on. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
I'm glad this was with you.
Yeah. Dang, that door is getting a little much.
It's kind of wild. We went from zero traffic to
I know.
Rush hour. Yeah.
It's okay. So anyway, ice cream, but that's okay. We can move on from there.
Yeah.
And I heard you mention before that your stepdad was a pastor.
Yep. Yeah.
So was that a big part of your life, or?
It was. So pretty big dichotomy, or disparity, or any other word that starts with DI that you want to throw in there. So my birth father is Buddhist.
Oh, really?
Yep, and was a stripper. And then my stepdad was a Quaker pastor.
A Buddhist stripper.
Yeah, and then I became a Green Beret. And so if you know anything about Quakers, I mean, one of the tenets of the Friends Church is pacifism.
Right.
So
but I did hear that you followed in your birth dad's footsteps in Wonder Garden.
I did. Yeah. So I followed both of them for a little bit. Pretty good hybrid. Like I led Bible studies in high school, and then I became a stripper in my early 20s.
I guess I think you're the first stripper guest I've had.
I don't know what I've listened to your podcast a couple times. I don't know what scripture you're going to open with on that one.
That's funny.
It's probably something in the Beatitudes, something about being meek. I don't know.
It's funny, man. But anyway, but is spirituality or faith still a part of your life at all?
Spirituality is.
Yeah.
Faith. It's interesting you ask about that because somebody asked me a very direct question on Instagram this morning. They just flat out asked if I believe in God, and that brought up some things for me. And this is actually the first time I've really talked about this publicly. I mean, I've talked about it with close friends. But deploying to, I mean, obviously, if I was a stripper in my early 20s, I got a little wild, but I always kind of thought I would cloverleaf back to it.
Sure.
And I think a lot of people do that.
Oh, yeah.
But when I deployed to Afghanistan, one thing that I saw there was the Taliban were very fervent, right? They're true believers.
Yeah.
At least the hardcore Taliban. Some of them are along for the ride.
Right.
Because if your village is being taken over, like, yes, I also would like not to die.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
I'll go along with whatever you're saying. But I realized, and my first deployment was 0304. I can remember this exact moment. I was driving from Seripal back to Mazar-e Sharif on one of the few paved roads that they had in the country back then. And I was looking out over these plains, and this guy he had his scarf wrapped like a turban, and it was waving in the wind behind him, and this big dog was chasing him. Later I learned that he was probably training that dog, but I thought the dog was actually chasing him down.
Yeah.
It was a big, mean dog.
And Muslims don't like dogs.
They do not, but Afghanistan, they do dog fighting.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess they have Afghan hounds, right?
Well, not like what we see, right? That
Not like the show dog type.
Right.
But,
No, my interpreter actually called them hell dogs.
Okay.
Yeah, they dock their ears, they dock everything, and they're mean. They're scary. So he's running across the desert it was just kind of a surreal experience. I remember I was driving a Land Rover Defender, and there was this British medic that was in the passenger seat, and we were coming back from a medical mission, and I nudged her, and she looked at me, and I said, "Roll your window down and lean back." And she goes, "What?" I said, "Do it." And she rolls her window down, and she leans back, and I put my 9mm out the window, and I was trying to help him out.
Yeah.
So I'm basically doing a drive-by on this dog that's chasing while we're cruising down this highway. But there was something about that particular moment. I don't know what it was, but something in there that had nothing to do with the dog chasing that dude. I think it was just kind of like the surreal experience of driving across the northern plains of this desert with this dude out in the middle of nowhere. But I was thinking about something I'd read about Arabs coming in to the country with, when Al Qaeda was still forming, or when they came in to be Mujahideen and whatnot, or fight with the Mujahideen, and that how they were so fervent. They were just on fire for their faith.
Right.
To the point where some of them would chain themselves to trees when they knew airstrikes were coming in, because they wanted to die for their cause.
Wow.
And that's what they believed in.
Yeah.
And it struck me that if I had been born in Afghanistan rather than the United States, I would be Taliban.
Yeah. Wow.
And I won the lottery. We all did, really.
Yeah.
I won the lottery by being born in the United States, but that really shook my faith to the core.
Yeah.
Because everything I'd been taught up to that point, like I went to a private school for a year in high school, and I think it's very, very important for anybody who has faith in anything to question and to ask themselves those hard questions. Because if you don't ask them yourself, somebody else is going to ask them for you.
Yeah.
And if you can't answer it, how strong is your faith?
Yeah.
And for me, it shook it enough to where I didn't come back. And I don't criticize anybody that does. In fact, I was telling Nicole earlier that I'm jealous of people that have that kind of faith. I'm so grateful for the moral compass that I had growing up, that foundation that gave me basically the guiding principles to do what I think is right. And it's not that I completely rebelled against the church or anything like that.
Right.
I didn't go absolutely wild, especially since I'm in my mid-40s now. But
So you actually, I thought you were getting at like you had like a religious kind of awakening experience, but actually you had an experience that kind of took you away.
I did.
So it was kind of that feeling of, it was all kind of just by chance that, and that everything was relative based on just, where you happen to be born kind of thing. Because, the other side of the coin there is you could, you say you won the lottery, but you could, or you could say you were placed here or blessed or whatever. But I definitely understand what you're talking about. I've had that thought before too.
yeah, and it goes even deeper than that, because being a medic, there are things that I saw that, the only thing standing between like, say, a local kid and top first world medical care was me.
Yeah.
And I did everything to the best of my ability, but there were things that I couldn't fix, and there were things that we couldn't save everybody in the country.
Right.
And there's also things I saw, just like my very first fatality in Afghanistan was a 4-year-old girl, and she'd been shot in the head, not by us, by like an angry neighbor or something.
Like on purpose.
Yeah,
Not like a stray bullet or something.
no, it was very deliberate, and that hit me pretty hard. It's still hard for me to
can
deal with that
imagine.
one. Like, that's not a book that's ever closed for me.
Yeah.
Because my son at the time was 4 years old. So I packed everything away, and there's a whole ordeal that goes along with that we can, depending on how long you want to record, we can go into it. But when the end of that night happened, I remember being in the dark outside of the Siege of Soda Jock, and I walked back in. I said, "Hey, I'm back. Mission done, mission complete, et cetera, so forth." I walked outside. It was pitch black right there on the sidewalk outside that clamshell tent, and I just felt my shoulders collapse, my knees get weak, and it was just a big adrenaline dump, and I just started sobbing uncontrollably in the dark. But that was really difficult for me. But where that came into play with my faith was, when I had questions about why something was the way it was, the easy answer for whether it was a pastor or a teacher at the private school I went to was faith. You got to have faith.
Yeah.
It's not enough for me because what I'm seeing is suffering, and I can't. It's hard for me to justify in my mind that I've got this all-knowing, all-loving Father figure who loves us so much that he gave his only begotten Son. But I've got this 4-year-old girl who suffered.
Yep.
And she's never going to know Christianity.
Yep.
Her dad's never going to know Christianity. They live in an Islamic nation. What's God's plan there?
Yeah.
It's just something that couldn't be rectified.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the oldest, biggest, hardest questions in the world, when it comes to faith. And, I think some of the reason why it's hard for us to answer that too is because I think a lot of us have been given an over-exaggerated picture of the sovereignty of God, that everything that happens on earth is God's will. But the reality that I found is like, in the New Testament, Paul calls the devil the ruler of this world. When the truth of the matter is like, evil really kind of runs this world. Like, not everything that happens is God's will. Like, a lot of stuff that happens is the enemy, and we have a bad enemy, and he's good at being a bad enemy. And so when I see suffering, I don't say, why did God do this? I say, this is not God. Like, that 4-year-old girl getting shot in the head, that God had nothing to do with that. He was crying with you. You know what I'm saying? But it's not easy though.
No, it's not. And this is what, for your listeners that are Christians or viewers, this is what I would like for them to take out of this. I don't want them to leave the church on account of something I said here.
Oh, of course, yeah.
What I want is, so you're an athlete now, right? How do your bones get stronger?
Like, through working out or
Through
breaking
stress.
them? Yeah.
Through stress, right?
Yeah.
Like if you stopped running,
Yeah.
I mean, this is something a physical therapist will tell you this. Maybe not one for geriatrics, but one for athletes is going to tell you, hey, if you break a leg, part of your rehab is you need to start pounding on that. That stress on that bone is going to make
or muscles
that
are like the
bone
micro
stronger.
tears.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We build bone, we build muscle through breaking it down. We break it down and it builds back stronger.
Yeah.
I want the people who claim faith in your audience, I want them to break it down and build it back stronger.
That's a great analogy.
That's what I would like them to do.
Because if you're seeking truth, it has to withstand.
Yeah.
Right? And you can't just close your eyes and say, well, I just believe it. Like,
A lot of people
you
do,
should.
though.
I know.
A lot of people do, and I saw that
Yeah.
in church.
Yeah. You should seek for truth.
I went to a lot of different churches growing up, especially with my stepdad being a pastor. He'd be a guest pastor at whatever, and there'd be a variety of faiths, and I saw a lot of different stuff, and what I saw in various denominations and various services and congregations and whatnot did make me a stronger Christian because I saw what I didn't want to be.
Yeah.
And I saw what I did want to be.
There are some faiths that actively preach like, don't ask too many questions.
That's the easy way, right?
Yeah.
Give me your money.
Yeah.
Don't ask too many questions.
Yeah.
That's the easy button.
Yeah. I mean, I was the same way, man. Like a big reason that I took the huge, like you said, cloverleaf path I took was because the faith that I was given as a child, I couldn't rectify logically or in my brain or scientifically or anything. And so I was like, I just threw the baby out with the bathwater, and I said, well, if I can't get past Genesis 1, how am I going to get to John 3, right? But I wasn't afraid to ask those questions. I researched it. I went, I came back to it, and so I do, I think people should question, and I like that analogy you did with breaking it down, and
it's the hard right.
Yeah.
I don't mean like the extreme right. I mean it's the difficult right.
Yeah, man. So I guess then because you said spirituality does still play a role in your life. So what role does it play now, or how's it look? If you don't mind sharing.
It took a while to get back to that point. So, unfortunately, a lot of people equate spirituality and religion, and it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Religion is a series
Religion
of
is man, and God is God.
Religion's a series of guidelines and rules.
Yeah.
Spirituality is not. Spirituality is that feeling inside you, that whether it's compassion, camaraderie, that feeling that for me, it's the feeling I get when I'm sitting on the side of a mountain and I'm witnessing a sunrise or a sunset, right? It's feeling compassion towards other people, or empathy, things like that. It's that thing that it doesn't make me feel small. It makes me feel part of something else that's bigger than me.
Yeah.
Whereas religion just tells me how to do things right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
and religion hurts a lot of people, and then they don't know what you just said, that religion and God are not the same.
Yeah.
Religion is man. Anything man does is going to be flawed inherently. God is not that. So you have to be able to separate it and figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, if religion and spirituality were the same thing, we'd have a hard time having three different. I always mess up Abrahamic.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
They all stem from Abraham.
Judaism, Islam,
Judaism,
and Christianity. Yeah. All the same foundation.
Yeah.
Pretty similar rules, but some stark departures.
Yeah.
Further where they branch out.
For sure.
And then they just start fighting. So, but
yeah, it's crazy, man. So, and kind of back to your analogy, something I talk about a lot is like spiritual fitness, and people a lot of times think, or they don't know how to approach spirituality or spiritual growth, and maybe don't know how to cultivate it. So, I actually, I believe it can be intentionally cultivated and like built on, and you can grow in it if you're intentional about doing that. But is that something that you try to do in your life at all?
The spiritual cultivation?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Because I think it's a very important and often overlooked component of your own health.
Absolutely. We're spirit, mind, and body, right?
Yeah.
And if all you're doing is working out and reading books,
and even the military has recognized this.
Yeah.
And
I was talking to Rich DeVinny. Have you heard him?
No.
Okay, I think he was Dev Grew. I can't remember. He was on Teams. He was a guest on the podcast, and he was talking about how the military had been looking into this stuff.
Yeah.
But go ahead. What were you?
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna say. I mean, spirituality doesn't have to be going to church.
Right.
If that's what fills that bucket for you, then by all means, go do that.
Yeah.
Right? Because it is your health. But for other people, it may just be sitting down and meditating for a minute. And I know for some Christians, meditating means, you're going over to Eastern religion and blah, blah, blah. That's not necessarily what meditating is. Meditating just means sit there and being quiet.
Yeah.
That's all it means.
Yeah.
Right?
Or literally it translates to muttering to yourself. like repeating
I
in
do
the
that all
Hebrew
the time.
anyway.
Yeah, so I meditate on the freeway a lot. I mutter. In fact, I mutter a lot at other people. You know, I didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, yeah, but that is an important. You got to slow down.
Yeah.
Whatever it is that gets you to slow down, step outside your daily to-do list, and center. That's the important. It is center. That's important.
Yeah. So how do you try to cultivate your spiritual health?
I write.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the only thing I have that's consistent because I travel. That's my form of.
Just kind of like journaling or writing your thoughts.
It's more of a deliberate process, and it's a double-edged sword because somebody told me I was good at it, and then so I started actually writing articles and books. In fact, a couple magazines right there that have my articles in them.
Oh, nice.
But now that there's an expectation there to perform, it's harder for me to use it as my own centering process, which is how it started. It really started, that the 4-year-old I was telling you about. I wrote something about her for an English paper in college, and it was so therapeutic for me that I realized I needed to keep doing that.
Okay.
And then back when I was living in Williamsburg, when this company first started, Evan asked me to write a piece of satire for the Black Rifle Coffee blog.
Okay.
And I never wrote that, but I did write something else, and I wrote a few other things to the point where Logan asked me to come on payroll as a writer, which felt weird to me, and I never took a paycheck because then it was a job, and I didn't need money at the time.
Yeah.
But then I deployed with JSOC, and I couldn't be a writer and deployed with JSOC at the same time.
Okay.
So I took a hiatus, and when I came back, Black Rifle was much bigger.
Yeah.
The blog wasn't the blog; it was Coffee or Die.
Gotcha.
And now it's a full blown. I mean, they've got online, they've got the magazine, everything else.
Very full blown.
But the writing itself, the process of writing for me, I equate it to finding the edge of on a roll of duct tape.
Oh yeah. Okay.
You need the tape, but it's difficult to find that edge.
Yeah.
And once you can finally get your finger underneath there and pull some, for me, once I can find the edge of the tape, I can just keep going.
That's cool.
But it is such a relief. It's I would say top for me is writing. After that, it's getting outside and throwing heavy things around.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
And then when I can, getting out in the woods.
Yeah.
And all that stuff is trumped by spending any time at all with my kids.
Yeah.
Even if it's not the best quality time.
Yeah.
It's just, I haven't spent so much time away, both in the military and in contracting for the government. And even to a point, some of my time doing Black Rifle stuff.
Yeah.
Anytime I get to sit down with them and talk about anything.
Absolutely.
When I am home, I make it a point to do dinner at the table.
Yeah.
We put phones away, we put dinner at the table, and for some people watching this, it's probably no big deal. But for when you don't have a routine, that is a big deal.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to just take your plate of food to the couch, because we'll watch movies together and whatnot. But I love what happens when we're around the table.
Yeah.
And there's no phones or anything else, because we don't have anything to do but talk to each other.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been really trying to do that too lately. So my wife is Iranian American, and they're like very cool with sitting on the floor and eating.
Yeah.
They'll just put a blanket out.
Right.
And so it became a habit. Like we would just sit on the floor in the living room and turn the TV on. Kids would be watching and stuff. And we had trouble getting my kids to eat unless we had them watching something. So, but we just moved to a new house, and I'm like, nope, we're going to the table. We're sitting at the table. No iPads and stuff like that. So it's good.
Yeah.
I did want to ask you one thing real quick before we move on about your writing.
Yeah.
I've heard that like there's a different mind-body connection when you're writing with actual pen and paper versus typing. Do you find that, or do you type?
I don't, and I have heard that before. One of my writing inspirations is Chuck Palahniuk. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. We're from the same town.
Yeah.
I dropped out of the college that he graduated from, you know. And I was a big fan of Fight Club. When I was going
That's the guy who wrote Fight Club?
Guy that wrote Fight Club, yeah. I heard him say on the Rogan podcast, just like in 2018, I was deployed when I listened to this, that sitting down behind a laptop isn't really writing. You got to use pen and paper. And I respect that for him, but that's not how it works for me. Yeah. Because the reason it doesn't work, it's different for me. I enjoy handwriting, but I see it as kind of inefficient because then I have to go through and try to read my handwriting when I'm doing it again, and I can type faster than I can write.
Yeah.
So that's basically why I do it. And I would love to be, more holistic and down to earth and actually use the awesome pen that my friend gave me to put in the, the handmade paper and whatnot. I would love that. There's something very romantic about that.
Yeah, right.
But the fact of the matter is, I don't always have a pen and a notebook on me, but I do always have my little pocket computer with me.
Yeah.
And I'll open up Google Keep or Google Docs and just start going to town.
Yeah.
And my Google Keep is filled with pull tabs for duct tape.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
That's cool. So you got into the military, and you did some cool, unique course stuff.
Yeah. I signed up to drive tanks. With the intent of getting out 2 years later and driving a snowcat on Mount Hood. And then I re-enlisted 3 times instead because I had kids, which is where my views on pacifism changed. Because I enlisted straight for college money, no other reason. And then, having kids, I realized that if somebody harmed one of them, I would have done them severe bodily harm. And that's a difficult attitude to have as a pacifist. So I realized I was no longer a pacifist. I was willing to accept that truth.
Yeah.
And then, as often happens when you get married when you're 19, my church camp sweetheart and I split up. And looking for a little direction, I needed some challenge in my life, and I started playing rugby for the post-rugby team. One of my friends that I was playing rugby with was going to Special Forces selection.
Okay.
I didn't really know what that was all about, but I knew that if I didn't go, I'd always wonder if I could have made that.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's why I went to SF selection.
Okay. And then, so when did you realize you wanted to get into medic stuff?
The day I got selected.
Okay.
Yeah, I was riding that runner's high. I had all endorphins. I was like, I conquered this. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done in my life.
Yeah.
3 weeks of the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And by that point, I knew that 18 Delta was the hardest job in Special Forces. So it was just like, whatever. I just did this hard thing, so I'll pick the hardest thing. I'll just keep challenging myself. So it wasn't because I had a deep desire to get elbow deep in blood and guts or anything like that, or save the world or anything else. I did have a little bit of a hero complex, but I could have had that hero complex as a weapons guy too.
So I'm like pretty ignorant about military stuff, to be honest. So is like the training, all the training the same except for you have the added medical stuff? Yeah.
So what happens is you go to selection. And everybody's on a level playing field there, and nobody has a name. You got a number.
Yeah.
At the end of selection, you either make it or you don't. Once you're selected, you get to put down on paper your wish list of what you want as your job, but that's only one variable. The regiment's also going to look at what they need and what you have an aptitude for.
Right.
And if you have higher intellectual test scores than average, there's a strong, and especially if you select medic, there's a strong chance you're going to get picked up for medic. That they're going to at least try that, because the 18 Delta course has such a high attrition rate.
Right.
We
so your pacifism thing didn't play into I'd rather be a medic than...
No, it had nothing to do with Sergeant York or Hacksaw Ridge or anything. I didn't even know a thing about Hacksaw Ridge back then. Yeah, it had nothing to do with that.
Okay.
It just had to do with continuing on to challenging myself.
Now, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Green Berets are different than a lot of other special forces. I mean, it's
yeah, we're super weird.
I mean, you're involved a lot with training locals and working with local forces, and like I always think it's like super interesting. Like if I see like a picture on your Instagram, and you're wearing like civilian clothes basically, and you're like with some Afghani dudes or whatever. So like, what's different, I guess, about the Green Berets that kind of makes it unique?
We have a wider variety of missions, so we really have to be good at everything. And it's not really jack of all trades, master of none. It's like
Master
jack of all trades, better than everybody else at most of them.
Yeah.
that's really what it comes down to. And that's why we're gone so often, is because even when we're not on a trip, when we come back, we've got to go to a school to maintain that proficiency or learn something new. And there are teams that have specialties, because you do need some kind of specialization. Like we've got dive teams and mountain teams and teams that drive boats and things like that.
Oh, interesting.
But, those are just and free fall teams, but those are just infiltration methods.
Yeah.
At the heart of an ODA, a Special Forces Detachment, everybody across the board that's wearing a tab and a green hat you should be able to pick one out and know that they've got this base level skill.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hand them a rifle, say follow me, or go over there. I'm depending on you. And you should know that they have that base level skill.
And you're basically part of a team, I'm assuming, and you go out and combat missions, but if people get hurt, you're the one that steps up and...
In terms of the medic?
Yeah.
Yes, but so everybody on ODA is cross-trained. Like I've seen weapons guys, Special Forces weapons guys, that are probably more proficient medics than a conventional medic in a conventional unit.
Right.
Better trained, more experienced, et cetera, so forth. Because we're such a small insular unit, when we're not off somewhere, or even if we are off somewhere, we're cross-training each other. So everybody on the team knows how to use radios. It's not just the commo guy. Everybody on the team knows how to stop bleeding and at least do the basic triage.
Yeah.
And evac somebody, not just the medic.
Yeah.
The medic's like a PA and a trauma surgeon.
Okay.
That shoots really well.
Yeah. That's cool.
It's really hard to put 18 Deltas in a category, because you could take somebody with half his training and he's got a Red Cross on his ID card and Geneva Convention protections as a non-combatant.
Yeah.
18 Deltas do not have non-combatant status. But we could run an entire field hospital.
Gotcha.
It's a really weird.
Yeah.
What do we do with these guys?
Hold on one second. I gotta go pee.
Sure. Oh man, I didn't even know there was a restroom there.
You didn't even know?
I didn't know that was there. Good girl. Good dog.
Did you think I was just gonna go pee in the corner or something?
I didn't know where you were going. Because the one I use is down the hallway there.
Yeah. All right, we're good. I want to hear. Well, I want to hear a little bit about your time, and because 9/11 basically happened like right when you got in, or
No, so I joined in '95. I've actually been in for 27 years.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute.
so.
I know I don't look a day over 70.
But also, something that I think is really interesting that I would like to hear a little bit about too, is Mary Jane Clinic.
Yeah, okay. So I went to selection in 2000. Or, I'm sorry, October, November '99 is when I went to selection. And if you're thinking of going to SFAS, anybody out there, fall is the best time to do it because some of that greenery is starting to die out because land nav. There is no land nav course like the one in SFAS, except for maybe the one in Delta Force selection. That's probably the only one that even comes close to.
Is that because it's like it's Army and that like Army's like land? It's like that's your thing.
I think it's just because it's Special Forces.
Yeah,
Honestly,
yeah.
I mean, I didn't go to Ranger school, but from what I've known a lot of Rangers my time. I've been teammates with them, and from what I've been told from the land nav there is it's more orienteering. Like you might do a little bit of overland, but it's also a group effort. Like the stuff you're actually doing over land, you've got your entire patrol there making sure you're on course because they don't want to fail either. And the guys on the road, then you're on the road, and that's easy. The stuff in Special Forces selection, it's not even on a base.
Yeah.
You're out on a game reserve,
Oh, okay.
and you're going through all kinds of terrain. You don't have mountains, so you're missing that, but there's swamps, there's water, there's wait-a-minute vines. If you're from the southeast, you know what a wait-a-minute vine is. It's you're walking through and you get through a draw and these vines just start hanging on you.
Oh,
and
dude.
You're fighting them.
Yeah, I got a story about those. I just had my appendix removed and I got drawn for this hunt that I really wanted to go on. And anyway, condensing it, I got stuck basically in that stuff and burst my stitches and didn't know it. And then like a month later, I was in the hospital for a month because I had 1.5 liters of fluid in my cavity and my lungs just collapsed.
That's fun.
So anyway, so 9/11 happens.
Yeah. So
tell me some more stories.
I'm in Special Forces school. Almost halfway through the medic course, the medic portion. We never talked about that whole pipeline, did we?
Not really.
Yeah. So selection, then small unit tactics phase, which is basically a condensed ranger school. Then you go to your MOS phase, which is your specialty, which for me is medic. And if you pass that on the first go, just the medic portion is a year long by itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's no joke.
No, I bet.
Yeah. And then you've got Robin Sage, which is the culminating exercise where you're actually on an ODA doing unconventional warfare with role player guerrillas. And then you've got language school and SEER school. That's how it was when I went through. That order's been changed up a little bit here and there, and I don't know what exactly it is right now. But all those components are in there. They're the same. So I was halfway through the medic course. I'd just come back from doing my paramedic internship in New York. I was just a few days out of I was working in an emergency room in Manhattan at Metropolitan Hospital, and we came in from PT just in time to see the second tower go down.
That's funny. I was actually coming in from PE in middle school.
Same, you know.
PT, PE, you know.
So we had our bags packed from the back of the classroom because we were brand new. We were fully certified. Everybody that was in the class at that point that had been rolled back was a nationally registered paramedic. So they were going to send us back up to help out the fire department up there. And it went all the way up to the Secretary of Defense, and he's the one that kept us in class. He said, just keep them in school, they're going to be busy enough.
Yeah.
And he was right, because a few months after I graduated, I was in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
But what was hard for people is the guys that were washing out of the 18 Delta course were going to 18 Bravo, which is weapons, and a much smaller course. We actually saw a guy that washed out of our course on the front page of a paper in the Philippines, because we weren't just fighting in Afghanistan, we were also fighting in the Philippines.
Right, the
Abu
Islamic,
Sayyaf. Yep, and other groups. But so now we've got this guy that didn't make it with us, but he's the first guy in our class to make it to combat. He's got a belt of Easter eggs walking through the jungle.
Oh, man.
We're like, no!
That's funny.
Easter eggs is 203 rounds.
Okay, yeah,
40 millimeter grenades. Yeah. So 9/11 happened while I was there.
That's the group that kidnapped that husband and wife missionaries.
Yep. Yeah. They're pretty decimated now.
Okay.
Yeah,
good.
there's still stuff going on over there,
Yeah.
and ISIS kind of enveloped any group that we came close to destroying. ISIS kind of came back and smothered and covered, I guess,
Yeah.
if you want to put it in a Waffle House terminology. And ISIS is, I would say, more formidable because they've had lessons learned from fighting us for 20 years. But
Yeah.
a lot of that stuff, I won't get too political on this, but a lot of that stuff is us tying our own hands behind our back. It's unfortunate.
Wait, what do you mean?
Well, let me preface this by saying that I'm not speaking on behalf of the Department of Defense
Sure.
or any other government agency. So this is my own views and opinions, but our own freedom. I mean, I love our freedom, but our government cycle is built off a 4-year election system, right? So we elect a guy, and he spends that first year picking out his cabinet and trying to implement some rules and follow up on promises, election promises, right?
Yeah.
But really, not much gets done because he's still trying to figure out his cabinet, right? He's trying to undo everything that the guy before him did,
Right.
Which is what we had in this case right now.
Yeah.
And then your second year, all right, we've got our cabinet, we can get down, we can do some business. That third year, they're starting to gear up for re-election, and the fourth year, they're campaigning. So really, you've got 1 year of effective government out of a 4-year election cycle.
Yeah.
And then, so during that time, I think there's more effort putting into what's going to get me reelected or what's going to get my party reelected instead of what's actually going to get the job done.
Yeah.
I'm all for term limits for legislators. I think career senator and Congress people, I think that's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
I wonder how people like Pelosi have become millionaires while being. I met Pelosi in 2003 in Afghanistan.
Oh, really?
And she's been in office. I don't know how long she was in office before then. I had to give her a briefing while I was there. I had no idea who
There's
she
some
was.
serious corruption going on.
But she's what? Read the other day she's got her net worth is 115 million. How does that happen as a government servant?
Yeah,
Right?
it should not.
Right. So I'm all for those term limits. I think a career politician is a bad idea.
Yeah.
But at the same token, I actually think we should have like a 6-year presidential term.
That makes
Even
sense.
if there's always going to be somebody that half the country doesn't like.
Yeah.
It's always going to happen.
Yeah.
And you can't win them all. But I would appreciate some continuity,
Yeah.
especially for somebody like me who's basically the trigger finger of foreign diplomacy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Even if it's something I don't agree with, at least we can see it through.
My man, G-Dog, what's
Hey.
up?
Shh.
Trying to be like me and shit.
That's Isaac.
How's it going, man?
How you doing, man?
Good. So anyway, maybe that was a natural exit point.
Yeah,
Political.
And jump off my
And
political
I mean,
soapbox
I
right
gotta
there.
say this too. I mean, like, no company in the world would hire a senile 80-something-year-old to run it, and we have a senile 80-something running our country. Anyway.
Yeah, I tread lightly there because I'm still carrying a CAT card, and
No, I get
I make
you.
an appointment not to even whether I like or dislike the sitting president. He is my commander in chief. And
Absolutely.
I'll never be the person to say it's not my president, even if I don't agree with him, because nobody forced me to enlist or re-enlist.
Yeah.
So
it's still America.
And it's still America, and I don't have to like the guy. I just have
Right.
to work for him.
Yeah.
I made an agreement. But I do think that if you've been in the same company for 41 years and you're not good at it yet, maybe you don't become the CEO.
Seriously, man.
That's my personal opinion. I mean,
Yeah. Anyway. All right. Tell me a story you haven't told on a podcast before,
all right.
if you can.
Yeah, sure. This one will actually be pretty relevant to this crowd because last October I was fortunate enough to go on a backcountry elk hunt
Nice.
in the Selway.
Well, okay.
Yeah. This is
That's a rugged country.
It is. It is very rugged country, and I've got a background in covering some pretty rugged ground, but I am not the physical specimen I was 20 years ago. So it was challenging. And that tall guy we saw walk across earlier, Mike, he was one of my hunting partners on there. So was Josh Smith from Montana Knife Company.
Okay.
And Lacey, one of our photographers who lives up in Idaho. And, she's a former Forest Service surveyor.
Okay.
So she's pretty tough. And Trevor Thompson, who's our token SEAL.
Did you guys kill?
He did.
Okay.
Trevor's the only person in the group that bagged anything.
Is it archery or rifle?
Rifle.
Okay.
Yeah. It was difficult because last year was really dry.
Yeah.
And so that drove everybody higher. There was not just word of wolves, but Lacey actually saw a pair of wolves while she was waiting. We took bush plane in, and she made it a couple nights before us because weather hit. She took off with the gear, and it was supposed to just be a hop and pop. Like they're gonna land, drop her and the gear off, and then bush plane's gonna come back up, pick us up. Well, on the way back, weather hit, and we couldn't get out for 2 more nights.
Oh, okay.
But via inReach, she knew that we were finally coming in, so she went down to the riverbed, not maybe 100 yards away from our camp, with her camera to watch us come in because we're coming in by horseback. And while she was down there, a pair of wolves
Oh no.
went screaming by. Yeah, we're like, "Why don't you shoot him?" Like, I had my camera, like, and your gun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it drove the game up pretty high.
Yeah.
That's part of what made it such a difficult hunt is we did. I think it was the 3rd day in. Clancy and I and a couple guest guides that came in to help us out. From our base camp, we saw a herd that was up at about 6,000 feet on a ridge line, and our camp was at $3,000 roughly.
Okay.
And it was afternoon when we saw this, so we had to make a quick decision whether or not we were going to get up there or not.
Yeah.
And we went. And the guy that was leading us I don't think he actually has a brain. I think it's just all heart.
Okay.
He's made of all heart and muscle. The dude is a straight up workhorse,
Okay. Yeah.
and there is no stopping him.
Yeah.
He used to play semi-pro ball, and he's a sheetrocker by trade when he's not hunting, and he's just.
Yeah.
And he went light. Like, he had a jacket and a disposable water bottle that he would refill every once in a while. He went super light.
Wow.
And Clancy is 6'5", I think, if not taller, and he's a former Force Recon Marine, so he was able to keep up to okay. I was the last one in the group, but I made it, and we got up there. We covered 3,000 feet in 90 minutes.
Wow.
It was brutal.
That was pretty brutal.
It was brutal. But so much of that
And in that country, it's not an easy 3,000 feet.
No.
Not that there is an easy 3,000, but like it's
So
deadfall.
Because we started at water.
Yeah.
And where there's water, there's thick veg.
Yeah.
So we were going through thick veg, and then a lot of deadfall going in around that, and it was kind of a blessing when we finally crossed the timberline.
Yeah.
But then it was shale and whatnot.
Right,
So
yeah.
just got the trekking poles out and rifle slung, and man, I was talking. At one point, I wasn't hunting anymore. I was just competing against myself.
Oh, for sure.
I'm going to get up there.
Yeah.
I'm going to get up there. And I did, but so much of that experience reminded me of patrolling in the Hindu Kush Mountains in Afghanistan way back in the day with an M24.
Yeah.
Heavy-barreled 308, because the terrain was similar, but so was the experience. Except there, I didn't really have a choice. It was just go do it, and also you're being hunted. Here, nobody's hunting me unless those wolves are out there, which I doubt.
Yeah.
I don't think they're hunting me. But it became. It was such a gut check that it was actually something I needed. It would have been very nice to go home with any kind of meat.
Yeah.
On that trip. But the gut check I had just doing that, facing that crucible for myself. I think every man needs that from time to time. Every man needs to get punched in the gut every once in a while, just to remind them of who they are.
When it was reminding you of being in the Hindu Kush in Afghanistan, was that like a good nostalgic feeling, or is it like a
Not at the
bad
time.
feeling, or
Not at the time.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not like I was having war flashbacks and there's Hueys and Creedence Clearwater playing in the background. There's nothing like that. But
because I never want to like compare what I do as a backcountry hunter to combat, because like you said, no one's trying to kill you. You're out there for fun at the end of the day. But you gotta at the same time think that like there's a lot of heavy similarities in terms of stuff you're doing.
There is, and it works both ways. You know, some of the best. It's like what you were saying in the beginning of this podcast. Some of the best soft guys, you were like, so many heavy hitters and badasses come out of Oregon. Why is that? Well, I think that's why. I think it's because they've had those physical challenges growing up.
Yeah.
You know, I ran cross country my freshman year in high school. I never did it after that. I hated it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can tell, but I'm not really built like a distance runner.
Yeah.
And I never really have been. And, you know, and I wasn't this big back then. You know, I was 5'7", 135. But even that's not.
Right.
I've always had thick legs.
Yeah.
I wasn't built like a distance runner. But by virtue of going to a small 2A private school, I was automatically varsity.
Yeah.
So I went from 0 to 5K. You know,
Nice.
and every race I ran, I hated.
Yeah.
In the midpoint of that race, I'd say, "That's it. I'm quitting after this race, but I won't quit this race." And so I never quit a race. And when I'd finish the race, I'd get that endorphin runner's high, which would trick me into doing it again. But I never quit that race. But that feeling of that acid in the top of my lungs, and knowing I was pushing knowing that my body and my brain were fighting.
Yeah.
You know, not being a stranger to that is what I think has carried me through a lot of things, to include Special Forces selection. You got to have those physical and mental crucibles, those challenges, those gut punches. You got to have those, and you got to give them to yourself, because if you don't test your limits, it's kind of like I was talking about faith.
Yeah.
If you don't test it, somebody else is going to.
Yeah.
You gotta build yourself stronger,
Absolutely.
or you'll break when the time comes.
Yeah. I think that's why, you know, so many people are drawn, or so many guys are drawn to backcountry hunting and stuff. And yeah, like in the moment, it's not always fun. A lot of times you're like, this sucks.
Yeah.
But I know, like for me, like I was saying, like, you know, I don't really have regrets, because like, you know, like I said, you know, I think everything happens for a reason. But like if I did have a regret, is like I always wanted to do something military-esque, or you know, Special Forces or something when I was younger. But like I told you, like I was literally a dumb junkie like all my 20s. Like they wouldn't even take me.
Right.
And like so, I wonder if that's some of the reason why I'm so drawn to this kind of activity and stuff like that. But yeah, just the confidence you come back out of, you know, these trips with, and like, because I was, you know, even just like 3 years ago, I was like just coming off of some rough times and was like obese, like literally obese, and I wanted to do these adventures, but like I just physically couldn't do it, and like, and that makes you, it's depressing. It says somewhere in Proverbs, like a dream deferred makes the heart sick, right?
That's Trevor. We were just talking about the Selway trip. Yeah.
So anyway, that's cool, man.
Yeah.
He's the one that killed?
Yeah, he's the only one that filled his tag.
Nice.
Yeah. The rest was just walked around.
I was just in there recently. That's rugged back there. Yeah. Well, cool, man. I don't know if there's anything else I was going to ask you about.
So that story, I actually wrote about it. It'll come out in the next print issue of Coffee or Die, which may not be called Coffee or Die. We tried to change his name, and then somebody else also had that name. I don't know what's going on there. So it may say Forward Observer on it, or
Forward
something.
Observer?
Yeah, but I think it's back to Coffee or Die now. It's been a confusing time.
So you grew up in a Christian tradition,
Yeah.
You had
Partially.
Partially. You had this experiences, which took you away from, I guess, organized religion.
Yeah.
But still, you have the spirituality.
I took a departure, I would say, from all of it.
Yeah.
It took a lot of growing and failing and maturing to learn that I didn't have to have one with the other.
Right. But then you came back, like, to something.
Yeah.
How can you define that? Would you define that?
I don't know
Is
if I can
there-
define it, but I can.
Like, do you find yourself
can
like in that
describe it.
moment where you're maybe it's that moment, or maybe it's another moment where you're very challenged or even emotionally challenged? I mean, do you find yourself falling back on something in your spirit or God or
Resiliency, I would say, and at the heart of everything, there's surrender. And you probably remember the moment when you turned your life over to Christ, that feeling that rushed over you when you realized you didn't have to do it all yourself.
Yeah.
That you just felt washed, right? And I know that feeling because I did it. But there's similar experiences to that, and a lot of guys out there think they can do everything on their own, and they continue to do it, and they continue to struggle, and it's not necessary. It's beating your head against the wall.
Yeah.
You have to be able to surrender. You have to know that not only can you not do everything on your own, but you shouldn't try to do
Right.
everything on your own.
But you're saying you can't define it. Is it settled in you, or are you still on the path to figure out what it is?
Yeah, I guess I'm still on the path, and I'm not mad about that. It's I guess it's part of traveling. It's part of searching.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, those who seek find. So.
yeah. And honestly, part of me hopes I never actually find it, because I enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
But I would say I'm wise enough to know that surrender is a key to it. You just got to surrender to the right thing.
That was my next question. Surrender to whom? Or what?
Have you seen The Deer Hunter?
I haven't.
Oh,
Sadly.
man.
I know.
Okay, well, that's homework. It's homework. Watch The Deer Hunter. It's a fantastic
Oh wait,
movie.
that's the one where they have to play Russian roulette in the cage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have
Ow!
seen. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was like too young. I didn't really.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lengthy movie.
Yeah. That's the only part I remember.
On VHS, it was 2 tapes.
Wow.
But there's a scene where he goes hunting when he comes back. He's back. He's a Green Beret. He comes back from Vietnam, and he's hunting with 2 guys that he grew up with, was friends with, and everything else. And you can see the difference between all of them. Mm-hmm. And I've personally experienced that. Like, I can identify a lot with that movie. But he's out and he's stalking this deer, and he's just running through the mountains, right? And he gets that deer in his sights. And I think for a lot of people, this next scene didn't make a lot of sense, but I think people that have actually had that challenge, and for people in combat, okay, yeah, that's an easy one, because that's what the movie's about, or at least that's the theme of the movie, that's the plot. But it doesn't have to be that particular challenge. He's come back from this experience changed, mm-hmm. and he has not surrendered to that change, right? But when he has that moment where he's watching that deer and he's got the deer in his scopes and they make eye contact, he drops his rifle and he says, okay, and then he yells out, okay, and I think that was his moment of surrender.
Just like meaning like acceptance, or
Yeah.
acceptance of the fact that he had changed, or
Yeah. I mean, we're getting a little philosophical here,
all right, I like it.
I don't have this mapped out.
Yeah.
at
No,
all.
this is great.
So a lot of this is just off the cuff. But
Yeah.
I mean, one thing I've told people is it's a lot easier to float down a river around a rock than beat your way through it.
Yeah. I guess it's just my personality to like want to define things so much, and like
It makes things a lot easier.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Yeah. Definition makes things a lot easier.
Not everybody is like that.
It's not so much I don't want to. It's I think.
Is there something in you that's still reluctant to like come back to the Christian God?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that'll happen. And it's not coming back to the Christian God. I think it's coming back to the Christian religion.
Yeah.
I can't come back to something where the answer is, well, you just have to have faith. And which is interesting because you're talking about having those definitions, right? Well,
are there certain
that part's not
things
coming
that
out.
like you just can't like that are stumbling blocks for you?
Yeah, dead kids mostly.
Right. Yeah, no. Like basically, how can a good God let that stuff happen?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a book by C.S. Lewis called The Problem of Pain, or The Problem of Suffering or something. You should read it. I think it's called The Problem of Pain, but C.S. Lewis, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, I've had those questions too and been able to work through them, but I had never seen a 4-year-old with a gunshot wound to the head either. So
Yeah, and I wish that was the only one.
yeah,
You know,
I have seen some stuff. I've done disaster relief and, but nothing like you've seen. So I
have a lot of respect for people that can do relief work and see the worst that humanity offers and still come back and have that guiding faith.
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for that.
I mean, I just see as bad things happen because we have a bad enemy and there's evil in the world. And like I said, I don't see, like, you know, a dead kid. I don't see necessarily like, okay, God did that. To me, it's like, okay, the enemy did that, and like it's our job to try to enforce good on the earth, and that's what God wants us to do. Maybe that's too simplistic. I don't know, but
It's all what your faith can afford.
yeah.
For me, I didn't see that God did that. I see that God allowed that,
Yeah.
and that's not something I can reconcile for myself.
Yeah.
So, in that respect, sometimes it does feel like I'm kind of out in the wilderness because I see where people are, you know, in the church and have their faith, and it's a blanket. They're able to wrap themselves up in that.
Yeah.
And
most people haven't had to see it like
right.
you have.
Yeah. And there are people that have. You
Yeah.
know, there are plenty of special operations guys out there that wrap themselves in that blanket. And you know, with veteran mental health being such an issue, you know, what guys end up turning to is the Bible, the bullet, or booze. And out of those three, if they got to pick the Bible, I'd much rather them do that. You know?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. This has been a good conversation.
It has been a good conversation, and there's definitely some stuff in here that, you know, is deep, and you're not going to find that, you know, it's not going to be on my podcast. It's definitely going to be on the Black Rifle Coffee podcast. So
Yeah, man.
yeah,
I'm gonna see if I can find that book for you and send you a copy.
sure, man. Be happy to read it.
Yeah. Well, anything else you want to say? I mean,
Use Smudge15 for 15% at Black Rifle Coffee.
that's good. My code's 20, so use mine.
Oh, nice.
But only on your first order.
Yeah, same.
Nah, man. All right, cool. Well, but seriously, anything else you wanted to say, or?
No, man, this has been a good talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should do another one sometime, though, and I really like where this one went.
Yeah.
So I wanted to stay on it. Maybe we can do another one sometime where you can just tell me cool stories.
Sure.
But I love this one, so.
Yeah.
Great talking to you, brother.
Yeah.
All right, man. Thanks, dude. That was great.
Girl.